right, so it's time to talk FPVR.
Tell us about it.
All right, so the FPVR stands for the franchise player value rating. Okay, it is designed to measure the players who have been of the greatest value to each franchise in the NBA. And the factors are basically what you're supposed to, what it takes into account is individual accolades, individual statistics, tenure, and team success.
Okay.
Right. So those are the things. Now you have to have played for a team for at least 3 seasons to even be eligible.
Okay. And what does a FPVR stand for?
I just said that. See, this is not a good class.
No,
this is not a good class. I just said it stands for the franchise player value rating.
Okay.
See, this tells me already that you're not going to be down because you're not taking this serious.
I am. I'm taking this so
You're
serious.
not plugged in. I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my.
All right. So give me some info.
All right. So for years of service, for every year of service, you get 3 points. So whatever your career scoring average is with that team, that's taken as face value. Same thing with rebounding, average per game, the assist average per game, the steals, and the blocks. Now, the steals and the blocks are tricky because the stats for steals and blocks weren't kept until the 72-73 season. So that, 73-74 season. So that
we can start from the modern era on.
Well, I don't do that. I know you don't like anything pre-merger.
See, hold on now. See, I told the people that I watch your streams. I watched you besmirch my name.
I absolutely
in front of everybody. Yes, you said that Books doesn't like talking about anything before 1975. No,
you don't.
Is not.
You don't.
No,
you don't.
see,
you
I'm
don't.
trying to explain to you why you're wrong.
You smeared doo-doo on the name of every man who played basketball before 1975.
I tremendously enjoy talking about NBA history. What I said was it is in a historical context because the game and the rules change. That changes the context.
Okay.
And also, along with the changes of the NBA rules, were the changes in technology. And
here's the thing. I don't disagree with any of that.
Okay. So I can't judge it side by side when we have literally every frame of Zion's basketball existence and Wilt Chamberlain's.
Yeah, I got all Will Smith's games on tape.
Wilt Chamberlain's most important game ever is a picture of him holding up the number 100.
Okay,
right?
well,
I'm saying I can't compare them side by side.
I'm not even going to get into that.
I'm saying for the sake of this conversation, for me to judge FPVR, can we stick to players above 1975 that we have film on, please?
I can't do that, and here's the reason why. Because this is not an evaluation of talent.
Okay. It's franchise value.
Exactly. Because there are going to be some people who were more talented than others who are not on this list, without question. But they may not have accomplished as much with that franchise. They may not, the statistics may not be there, or they may simply not have spent as many years in the franchise. All of it gets put in together. So I'll tell you, the results of the FPVR, for the most part, are pretty sound. Okay, so let me finish with the
according to whom?
With the form. I'm going to tell you. So
Black John Hollander.
You get 3 points for championship rings. You get 1 point for playing on a team that made the playoffs. You get 1.5 points for playing on a team that reached the conference finals.
Wait a minute.
Oh God, here we go.
Hold on.
Heaven help us today, Lord Jesus help.
I have questions. You want me to pay attention? I got a deep dive.
Yes.
Go. So according to this,
yes,
a player who joins a team and wins 3 championship rings could possibly be less valuable than a player who gets booped in the first round 4 times?
No, because it's a double up. Because if you got a championship ring, you made the playoffs. So you got the points for making the playoffs. You also got the points for making the conference finals. You also got the points for making the finals. And then you also got the additional 3 points for making a ring, for winning a championship ring.
Okay.
So yeah, you don't miss that. You get 5 points for making an all-star team.
Why is an all-star team more points than? All right,
because that's it. You did that. I mean, because it's less than a championship ring, because I'm giving 3 points to the guy who was the star all the way down to the guy who was the last guy on the bench. But if you're an all-star, it separates that. I gave a half a point for being an all-star game MVP. It's only a half a point because it's not that big of a deal, but I thought it needed to be represented. 10 points for winning a league MVP. 10 points for winning a finals MVP, because I think in the scope of a franchise value, winning a finals MVP is just as big as winning a league MVP. If you're an all NBA first team selection, it's 8 points. If you're a second team selection, it's 5 points. If you're third team selection, it's 3 points. If you're the rookie of the year, it's 3 points. If you're defensive player of the year, 3 points. If you're a sixth man of the year, it's 3 points, which is tricky, as well as the defensive player of the year, because that particular statistic or award wasn't given out to the 82-83 season. And then I also have a scaled point selection for all defensive first, second, and third team. So now I'm going to tell you the results of this, as I've said, have come out fairly decently. I think great. So if you were to,
someone told me that Grant Hill has a higher rating than Isaiah Thomas.
This is my point. People don't hear. They don't hear. The FPVR has nothing to do with my ratings formula. I have a separate ratings formula that is entirely different than the FPR tells me who's going to be on the team. The ratings formula is something completely different. Yes, Grant Hill has a higher rating than Isaiah Thomas, because if you look at Isaiah Thomas's best now, okay, Isaiah Thomas is a 93 overall. Now, I will let you know that my ratings are much lower than 2K's ratings, because I have no idea what some of the stuff they were smoking when they rated some of these players, because I'm like, where in the world did you ever see this guy doing that where you gave him that? Because what I think happens with 2K a lot is 2K says, oh, this guy has a reputation of being a great player, so we feel a responsibility to jack his overall rating up to here, which now has him doing stuff he never did.
I would also say the overall rating favors well-rounded players over specialists, which is not always because Shaq with such a low free throw rating, such a low mid-range rating, such a low three-point rating should have a much lower rating than Hakeem Olajuwon, say.
Wait a minute, say that one more time. Say that last thing again.
I said he should have a lower rating.
Who is that?
Shaq.
Shaq should have a more lower
than Hakeem on paper. Like if you were just to rate them in every category, Hakeem's averages are going to be higher because he scores in more things higher. But on the court, because of Shaq's specialized skill.
But see, I think some of the specialized skill factors into the rating, because there's a strength rating.
Yeah, there's a strength rating, but Hakeem doesn't get a 0. That's the problem.
He doesn't get a 0. But
so here's the thing: if you get a 50 in three-pointer, and I get an 80, and you get a 50 in free throw, and I get an 85, and you get a 99 in strength, and I get an 85, my overall average is going to be higher than yours, even though that 99 in strength might be more of a prominent factor in head-to-head play. And so that's why overall ratings and overall value aren't going to be the same thing.
100%.
But how is Grant Hill a more valuable Piston than Isaiah Thomas?
No, he's not. He's not a more valuable Piston. He's just a higher rated player in the game. It's a different.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying? He's not. Isaiah Thomas is far and away the number one player on the Pistons FPVR. He has his total is 206.8, and number 2 is Joe Dumars, and he's at 155.3. Okay. Grant Hill is 5th on the FPVR list.
Sorry.
So yes. What is? You know what? I gotta get Zara. What are you talking about? Oh, he said, don't drag 2K into this FPVR, man. Yeah, 2K, you know what? I'm trying to tell you. Hey, dude, some of the ratings, like as I'm rating players, and what Books just said is actually 100% correct about how specialists get a shaft. Because I just honestly rated Reggie Miller. Honestly, right? I watched so much Reggie Miller, it's ridiculous. Like Reggie Miller might be the guy who I watched as much as any non-Bulls player. Right, I loved Reggie Miller, and I rated him honestly, and he's like an 82.
Right. Right. But the thing is, if you had the skills of clutch rating, catch and shoot, contest shot, and Reggie scores so high in those shots that the difference between him and, say, I was going to say Devin Booker, but he's actually not that good of a shooter. Who else is like a good shooter? Say Buddy Hield.
Right.
The difference between Reggie Miller and Buddy Hield at this point in their careers is going to be really big in close games.
Yes.
Because the small margin of error the defense has on Reggie versus Buddy, right? Like Reggie should be scoring with such a tiny margin of error that it feels like he's in takeover as soon as you hit the end of the game, because all of his ratings are coming into fruition.
Yeah, right? Because I think what there is there is a there's a difference between the overall rating, which is just this generic formula, right, and then there's a such thing as an impact rating, right? And Reggie's impact, I've played with this Reggie Miller that I created, and his impact is significant. You cannot leave him, and that floor spacing is not accounted for in the overall rating. And
I think 2K uses 2K has to make a devil's bargain of either overrating a player in a category or using inconsequential stats to move the overall up.
Yes, that's exactly what happens. The hands rating moves people up quite a bit. From having made these players and created them and taking guys' ratings up and down, it would probably shock people how big of a deal or how big of an impact the hands rating has on the overall rating.
Right.
And I got an explanation on what the hands rating does from Mike Wang. He told me that it is for loose balls. And it's for loose balls and catching, which I think it should be for more than that. And I shared that with him. And I think that it should be a little bit further, or there should be another piece of that on top of it. But yeah, but it takes it up quite a bit. So and like so I got a lot of flack for my Iverson rating, right? But I had to pay attention to the stats, and Iverson was never a good a high percentage 3-point shooter, never, right? So, well, he was with the Nuggets, he was better as his 3-point shooting with the Nuggets was much better, but with the Sixers, it was a lot of it was mid-range stuff, and his overall field goal percentage, dude. There was one year he averaged like 29 a game, but he shot 38% from the field. You know, so if I'm representing that in the game, yes, I have to represent that this is Iverson, and to me, I do that with badges.
Well, here's the thing with a guy like Iverson. He's a great case study because he's a guy similar to Russell Westbrook, actually, that you can rate him one way. The problem is that a lot of his problems are up here. So when you put him in the game, he's going to overperform, even if you rate him accurately, right? So with Iverson, with a 99 speed, 99 ball handle.
Everything you just said is what I have.
Right. The crossover animations are going to be the cheesiest crossover animations you can possibly find. The layup rating, all of that stuff is going to be very high. As we talked about with Kyrie Irving, he's not going to take them Kobe shots that he shouldn't be taking if you're controlling him, and you never get tired. You don't feel the same level of pressure. So yeah, you have to be careful with rating these players for that reason.
And I didn't want to fall into because this is my 4th year doing this roster, and I probably shouldn't take it as serious as I do, but I want to make sure it's dope, right? Like, I'm spending my time doing this. I want to make sure it's dope. And I got Razor's help this year. So Razor, that's why I switched it to PC, because I wanted the faces to look like they're supposed to look. And he's been killing it. You know, really shout out to him. But like, so I didn't want to fall into, oh, that's one of my favorite players, or everybody thinks this dude is really dope. So I want to make sure his rating doesn't piss anybody off. And I think that that's what people kind of get into. Like, Iverson, so many people who, if you were in your teens or early 20s in the 90s, it's a good chance Iverson might be either your favorite player or your second favorite player, right? So because of that, everybody's like, hey, you know, Iverson should be a 97. Dude, no, he can't. Not the way that this game works.
Well, even Iverson himself, when he talks about matching up with Kobe, let's say, he would say, I would try to get Kobe on the offensive end because there was no way I could guard him on the other end. These are his words.
Yeah.
And that, hold on, that's because for a reason.
Yeah.
That's an imbalance in things that should show up in the ratings. That has to be represented in the game. The fact that one guy can't guard the other guy.
Yeah, think about it, man. We're talking about a 6 foot, 165-pound shooting guard. How can that guy, as great as he is, ever be rated in the 90-something?
Well, and here's the issue with Iverson. The reason he couldn't play point guard would never manifest in 2K. You would always play him at point guard in 2K.
I play him he starts at point guard on the
all-time
course. Sixes.
He's one of the great point guards ever if he just plays proper point guard. But let's go to FPBR because we agreeing on a lot of stuff and we probably going to disagree on this right now. So, according to your metric,
yes,
Robert Horry and Tim Duncan get the same amount of points for their championship
ring. You talking about with the Spurs?
Yeah.
Well, no, because Duncan has some rings without Horry.
I'm saying for the rings that they got together. Let's say hypothetically, any time that a star player doesn't get Finals MVP, they get the exact same amount of points for the championship as a role player.
They get the same amount of points in the championship, but they don't get the same amount of points for the season because obviously if you were a better performer, that's where the individual statistics roll in.
So and here's my first major disagreement with the system. I think being at the top of your team in the major categories, we can just for now call it leadership, but you can calculate it if you want with PER and points per game and all that stuff, defensive player of the year. Those things will help contribute towards it. But those players who bring the championship to the team should get more points for the championship, especially because a lot of times other players on that team are either brought in or go to the team so that they can win with that player. So that player should get more points. Like Kobe Bryant and Derek Fisher should not share points for as much stuff.
Well, see, here's the thing. I kind of see what you're saying, but
because
what I've noticed from doing this for every single team for the past 4 years is that it doesn't actually end up working out that way. Because yes, they do get this. It like just with simple math, it appears that they get the same amount of points, but they don't turn out getting that same amount of points because let me think of a situation like even like Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was a big part of those 2 championships in Detroit, but he doesn't get the same amount of points as Isaiah for that season. And it's really more about the season than it is about just the championship, because it's more about the entire tenure. And because Isaiah was a better player than Rodman, Isaiah gets his due. Joe Dumars gets his due. And to me, the proof is that you never really see, I don't think you see anybody who was here's one of the ones that I get flack for. Dennis Rodman is not on, he doesn't make the Bulls FPVR. And the reason why he doesn't is because he never made an all-star team with the Bulls. He only played 3 seasons, which is the bottom line minimum for being there. And because the Bulls won 6 championships and they had so much team success. And then there are some players who maybe didn't win the championships, but they were so much better from a overall standpoint than Rodman that they beat him out.
So let me ask your Bulls team real quick, because I'm going to ask a couple of your teams so we can start. So you only go to the top 5?
I got 15, top 15.
Top 15, okay. And Rodman doesn't make top 15.
He doesn't make top 15. He barely misses, but he doesn't. Actually, he misses by a little bit. But
so who's your top 15 on the Bulls?
Michael Jordan. Of course, Michael Jordan is
Michael Jordan, Scottie
second
Pippen.
place. Second place is not close.
Right.
Scottie's next. Bob Love is 3rd. Derrick Rose is 4th. Jerry Sloan is 5. Joakim Noah is 6. Norm Van Leer is 7.
Hold on. So Joakim Noah is more valuable to the Bulls franchise than Horace Grant?
And here's why. It is it's about the tenure. It has a lot to do with it. Joe has had 9 seasons with the Bulls. Grant had I forget how many it is. I got it in here, but he has more seasons than him. And if Joakim Noah had not had the amount of playoff appearances that he had and had not been a part of the team going to the conference finals, he was an all-star and a defensive player of the year, all defensive team, all NBA first team one year. So it took a lot, and he just barely beats him. He only beats him by 5 points. Actually, not even a full 5. Well, yeah, 5.1 points. It took a lot of individual accolades to move past Horace Grant, because Horace Grant is right after Norm Van Leer. Horace Grant is 8th. So yes, short answer, yes. Joakim Noah, he has a higher FPVR.
All right, continue your list.
And then Artis Gilmore, Desar's uncle, is 9th. Chet Walker is 10th. Luol Deng is 11th.
Okay.
Tony Kukoc is 12th.
Luol Deng has more value than Tony Kukoc?
Hey, I'm telling you,
there's a bug in the system.
It's not a bug in the system. It's not
man.
a bug in, because you yourself talked about how instrumental a player was in a specific run. Grant absolutely was the 3rd most important player on 3 different championship teams. He was. And I think that Horace Grant was a much better player than Dennis Rodman. I get a lot of flack for that, but I think as the Bulls were a better team. The first 3 championship teams, I think, especially the second one that beat Portland, I think was the best Bulls championship team of all. It was even better than the 72-10 team.
Mm-hmm.
But Grant was the 3rd best player on those teams. Joakim Noah was the heart and soul of the Chicago Bulls. Yes, Rose was the best player, but Noah was the heart and soul. He was an all-around player, and he did end up getting his own individual accolades. And he was on the team that went to a conference final, and he played on the team longer than Grant and Kukoc. So you got to think about it. Kukoc was a 6-man the almost the entire time he was with the Bulls. So that definitely kept his scoring down. He never made an all-star team with the Bulls. You can say, like the example that you gave about coming to a team specifically to be better because you're joining on with superstars. That is absolutely Tony Kukoc.
Right, and he helped the Bulls a lot.
Oh, he absolutely did. No, I mean, Tony could have been a 20-25 point a game guy on a different team, but it's not about that. It's about what he did on this team.
All right. So what's your Lakers look like?
The Lakers have, let's see, Vern Mickelson's number 1. No, I'm joking. No, Kobe's number 1. He has a pretty big lead over Magic.
Yeah, he played a lot more.
A lot longer.
He played a lot more. And they have the same amount of rings, and Kobe scored more than he did. So.
Yes. And but Magic got the 3 MVPs, which is, significant. But it still didn't make a difference.
Yeah, well, you know how I feel about MVP, and I'm looking at it this year. If Harden wins over Giannis, I will never care about MVP.
He's not gonna win. There's no way. But Kobe's number 1, Magic's number 2, Kareem is number 3, Jerry West is number 4, Elgin Baylor is 5, Shaq is 6, George Mikan is 7, Michael Cooper is 8.
See. That I know what it is. I know because Shaq only played.
Yes.
How many years did he play?
8.
8. I mean, 8 is a long time, dude.
8 is a lot, but dude, Elgin Baylor. I mean, like,
but he didn't win no championships though.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how you want to do the last championship that he. I mean, he
didn't. He did not win that championship.
He was on the team and he got a ring though.
No, he retired before. He didn't play.
He left, like he played the first 17 games and he retired mid.
Yeah, he didn't play in the playoffs.
No, he didn't play in the playoffs.
He didn't win the championship. You don't win the championship if you don't play. Stop. See what happens.
But now, you know what? I actually debated back and forth after whether I should give him that 3 points for that ring. But his edge over Shaq is more than 3 points.
No, it shouldn't be though, because this is what I was talking about, this is exactly my point. Because Shaq being the most dominant force in the league and leading the Lakers to 3 straight And also bringing Kobe along into his prime as a winner set the Lakers up for, I mean, how many years of dominance was it from their first championship to Kobe's last championship? Like they dominated the league, and Shaq was a big part of the reason that kicked that off. And the Lakers, when they won their 3 championships, it was, people don't remember, but it was bad. Like when they ran through to Philly was the only team that even got a game off of them for a year. That's insane.
Yeah, I see. But here's
Elgin Baylor never won a ring. It's one thing if he had like 2 and you could be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. He didn't even have one. And Shaq went to 4 straight finals.
And obviously, I'm not.
During the Tim Duncan and Karl Malone and Chris Webber and Stojakovic. Like that's
here's the thing. Much of the things that you're mentioning cannot be quantified. And if you're if you're making a formula, you can't really include.
You can if you have the top PER players get more credit for their championship rings than the role players. That solved. Cold case solved. Roll credits.
So you're saying that you're saying basically you create a list or a scale and says that if you are one of the, or not even a scale, if you're the top 3 in the top 3 of the PER, right? Mm-hmm. And you and you win a championship.
Let's rephrase this in the form of a question.
Mm-hmm.
If you gave, first of all, if you gave every starter,
mm-hmm.
and let's throw on the 6th man, if the 6th man was a 6th man and not just, the first guy off the bench, right? Mm-hmm. If you gave every starter in true 6th man, right, 1 extra point off over the bench players for their championship,
right,
and then for the remaining people, those 6 or 5 that are remaining, you mm-hmm. gave them 1 extra point in order of PER.
Right.
And 2 more points for the guy who was tops in PER.
Mm-hmm.
What would that be a bad thing for your system?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think it would be a bad thing. I don't. I think it's actually a pretty decent idea.
Oh,
no, I do. I think it's a pretty decent idea. If specifically for this particular argument, it wouldn't make a difference. And the reason why it wouldn't make a difference is you would need far more than that, because we're talking about, like, if we were talking about like Kurt Rambis or somebody, then if we're talking about Kurt Rambis versus Shaq, then it would make a huge difference. But Elgin Baylor was arguably the best player in the NBA during the time, right?
Yeah, but if you don't,
Elgin Baylor they went to 9 finals.
Mm-hmm.
They went to 9 finals. They couldn't beat the Celtics, right? They went to 9 NBA finals. He was a 10-time all NBA first team player. He averaged more points, rebounds, assists, and steals during his Laker career than Shaq.
Now, but here's the thing. I'm going to go with a different case. And I know he's probably number 1 on this list. But take Dirk Nowitzki and his finals, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was one of the greatest finals runs in NBA history. And they recently had a conversation about Dwayne Wade. Was he ever the best player in the league? I don't really care about that. But they related it to the fact that some people said Dirk Nowitzki was the best player in the league when he won the championship. Actually, he definitely was. Dirk Nowitzki, during that championship run, not as an overall player, but during that run, was as unstoppable of a monster as I've seen anybody be in the playoffs. And that's why he has a ring. And he should get much, much, much more credit for that championship, according to how incredible he was. That should be recorded in the data.
But here's my thing. What I've noticed is that it doesn't matter, because
it matters when you have, it clearly does.
How?
Because a 3-time champion on a team should have more clout than a no champion. The point is to win the championship. If it would be different if we're talking about a no championship guy who never sniffed the championship, who was not nearly the player. Elgin Baylor was arguably just as impacting to his team as Shaq was to his. They just didn't win. Shaq won championships.
Shaq won championships, but Shaq never won a championship without Kobe, so you can't completely take that away.
No, Kobe would get tremendous points according to his
Absolutely. But it's just I don't know. I don't personally see an issue with that particular one.
Well,
I can see how in some instances that would be a really, really valid point. And it's like, wow, really? But that one, because of the caliber of player that Elgin Baylor was, I don't have no problem.
Here's the thing. While I agree with you that the goal of this is to make sure that tenure and playoff appearances doesn't ever encroach upon championships, I think what it does, I think one of the most valuable pieces of information of a historic team is the key players that brought championships to that team. 100%. The guys who were the best. 100%. And I think it's funny enough, I'm not even the biggest Shaq fan in the world, but I think Shaquille O'Neal deserves, that should be noted. Like the fact that he was the most dominant thing the league had possibly ever even seen for that number of years. And the fact that they beat so many great teams and that he did it in such tremendous fashion. And again, I'm one of the first people to jump up and tell you Kobe averaged almost 30 points a game during that time. I get it. But that should be noted.
No, you know what? I can dig. You know what I can dig? I can dig a separate category in the FPVR that says something like prime time player or something to that effect. And what it does is it recognizes if you were so say for instance like this. So if you say, I'm going to take the top 3 pers on the team for that particular season, right? And if you were, so say if you were the number 1 guy, you get a 3. If you were the number 2 guy, you get a 2. If you're the number 3 guy, you get a 1. You get 1 extra point. And for each year that you were that guy, you get these extra points because you were that guy from an all around standpoint. And I could dig that. And that could potentially make it could potentially make and I guess maybe if you're that guy for a championship team, right, then it matters too. But I don't know. It gets a little,
because Derek Fisher is actually a really good case.
Yeah, he's actually 15 on the list.
So, but you look at Derek Fisher versus other players, it would account for the fact that as a starter, he and the clutch shooting, all that stuff, it would account for that. He would be on there because he was a starter on those teams. His PER would give him certain numbers and blah, 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 over guys who might have had better numbers than him, but either didn't win as much or, were on the bench and stuff like that. I think it would just organize that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can kind of dig that. I could actually kind of dig that.
I'm happy to help you, man. I just want to hear.
Here's the thing. Okay. So somebody asked, they wonder where Pau Gasol is. The Pau Gasol did not make the Lakers team. Making the Lakers is probably one of the Lakers. That's right. It's insane because they've had so much winning.
Yeah, and you got guys like James Worthy.
I mean, you got even like Wilt Chamberlain's on the list. Yeah, right. But he's low for the Lakers. He's only 12th. But I mean, Wilt averaged 17 and 19 and 4 with the Lakers, and was an all-star every year he was there. And you know what I'm saying? So it's, you know what I'm saying? It's, I mean, wow. It just, then, you look at guys like Gail Goodrich and you're like, okay, well, how, but you don't realize Gail Goodrich went to 4 finals. He won a ring. He was a 4-time all-star. He averaged 19 a game. The
Lakers are a beast of a franchise.
It's a beast.
There's going to be good players left off.
It's impossible for it not to be. But what I wanted to make sure was that the right person was at the top of the list for every team. Bob Pettit's number 1 for the Hawks. Dominique Wilkins is 2nd. People don't realize how good Bob Pettit was from a statistical standpoint. Well, we can argue would he even be in the league in today's game? Maybe, maybe not. But for the time he played, he dominated. Bill Russell was actually number 1 for the Celtics. Think about the rings.
Yeah, of course. So, that's no question. That's not even
right. Kemba Walker is number 1 for Charlotte. That just shows you how bad that franchise has been.
Yeah, it's tough.
This year, he just moved past Larry Johnson.
And it's also a young franchise.
Yes. Of course, Mike
they
is
don't have
number
that
one
history.
for the Bulls. LeBron is number one for Cleveland.
Mhm.
Dirk is number one for Dallas. Alex English is number one for Denver. David Thompson's number two. And if somebody's wondering, Melo is four. Isaiah's number one for the Pistons. Rick Barry is number one for Golden State for right now. We'll see
Ooh,
how that runs, because Rick Barry does have a ring.
see,
He has a ring.
see,
And Rick
this
Barry
is
averaged
no,
Rick Barry averaged 25, 7, 5,
that's
2
still
steals, five playoffs, 3 conference finals, 2 finals, a ring, and what is this? An 8-time All-Star, and what is this? 7 All NBA first team.
this is where what I'm talking about would come into play, because Rick Barry's a great player
Yes.
and deserves to be at the top of the Golden State list. But Steph Curry is the greatest player in Golden State history.
And see, here's what I'm saying.
Hold
This
on.
is not about
Not
talent.
rating. It's not about talent, but I'm talking about just from a contribution standpoint. Steph Curry is the leader of the greatest era in Golden State history. Golden State has been the most dominant team in the league since 2015.
But see, here's my thing.
Real quick, if Steph Curry got more credit for being great on championship teams, that would separate him from Rick Barry. And I think more people would agree with that result.
Well, here's the thing. If they win the championship this year, by the end of this year, he may pass. He will probably pass.
If Steph retires tonight, seriously though, right? Am I right? Like, if they lose in the first round, Steph Curry is still the #1 Golden State Warrior in franchise history. And it's not just because he's more talented than Rick Barry or the era that we're playing in. You're talking about 5 years of being the baddest kid on the block, and he's the #1 reason.
Yeah, you know what?
Kevin Durant sits down, they look like they better.
But see, here's where that's where you have to bring in something that is really not quantifiable, in my opinion, because now you're talking.
It is quantifiable. Give Steph more credit.
No, you said that this is the most important era in Warriors history, and I do not dispute that. I 100% agree with that, right? But that's not anything that's an opinion still, even though it's a popular opinion. It's still an opinion.
I'm on paper, the number of wins that they have, this is the greatest they've ever been. Let's put it that way. That's not an opinion. That's objective.
But it's the greatest they ever been. But think about it like this. Think about it from this standpoint. It's the greatest they've ever been because they are such an amazing team overall. Steph Curry was amazing before all of this came together. Of course, yes, he's a better player now than he was early. But part of why they're this good is because of the team. Yes, Steph is the man.
#1 reason.
He is the man. He is the man.
#1 reason.
He is the man. But Rick Barry was the man on his team, and it wasn't as good of a team.
Correct. But Steph, you said franchise value. Steph has the most franchise value in Golden State Warriors history.
See,
if you gave Steph more, I know you agree with that. So if you gave Steph more credit for his championship accomplishments and his role in leadership during those accomplishments, that would separate him from a guy as decorated as Rick Barry, but not nearly as accomplished.
But check this out. If Steph had won a freaking Finals MVP,
that doesn't.
It does.
You know why it's irrelevant?
You know why it matters? You know why it matters? Because Rick Barry won Finals MVP when they won.
It doesn't matter to me. I think Finals MVP can be overrated, and here's why. Because the main reason is, if it was playoffs MVP, I would agree with you. But Finals MVP is so heavily related to circumstances and matchups. It's one series. Like on the Shaq and Kobe teams, there's certain matchups, particularly against the Spurs and Sacramento Kings, where Kobe was like arguably the primary reason they got past. It was the fact that they couldn't match up with Kobe, that they beat those teams, because you had Tim Duncan and Chris Webber pulling Shaq out the paint, giving him fits in different ways. When they got to the Eastern Conference team, he was facing against Jason Collins.
So,
come on, son. Like,
some of this, what you're
he
saying,
could average 90.
Some of this, what you say, I don't necessarily disagree with,
How's that right?
but here's the thing: you can't break from the formula
You
with
can.
every no, you can't break from it with every single instance because you're going
But
to start to
here's the
see
thing,
some of
though.
this stuff as a case by case basis.
But here's the thing. What I'm saying, if you gave more, we could debate how many points. But
Right.
if you gave the starters / six man, if it applies, more credit for their role on championship teams, this would even out the results. Even
So you're going to really be mad the fact that Steph's not even number 2. He's number 3.
wow.
Will Chamberlain's number 2. Will Chamberlain. Okay, come on, man. Think
No,
about.
I don't even think it's close. I think Steph has. I think if you're the Golden State Warriors overlord and you say who is the one player that I want for what they've done for me ever, it's clearly Steph Curry. Like clearly.
Here's the thing. I think also you might be being a little too literal with the word franchise value. And I know that partly is on me because that's the name of the formula, but you're looking at it and you're taking the word value and you're partly defining it by something that is not based on pure numbers. You're basing it because you're starting it off with a concept that's not about numbers, but then you're turning it to a number because you're saying, if you ask me who's done the most for me, that's not about numbers. That's about me. And I'm not saying that what you come up with as a result is incorrect, but you're thinking about which one has been the most which one is most valuable. And if you do that, what you're doing is you're like, okay, you may not realize it, but you're considering the era, because the greatest player today is always going to be more valuable from a standpoint.
I'm not considering the era, because here's the thing. This would actually correct for past times too, because if you take a player like, say, Dr. J on the Sixers, his championships would give him more and would help make up for some of that time he missed in the ABA compared to modern players. I don't think there's anything wrong with giving players extra credit for being starters and stars on championship teams. That is not a bad concept.
No,
that
I don't think it's a bad concept, but I don't, you know what? I don't think that it would change it as much as you think, because some of these issues or some of these situations that you're arguing them against other fantastic players who have a distinct edge in some key statistical categories. Like, you might not realize it, but Rick Barry has a higher points per game average, more rebounds, and the difference in assist is only 1.5 per game. He also has more steals, more blocks per game,
I'm actually glad
played with the team longer.
Points average is one of those things where it counts in bad years. You know what I'm saying?
But see, that stuff right there, that's when you start bringing all that in, then now you're kind of this is
like take Draymond Green, right? Draymond Green's a great example because Draymond was super valuable on the championship teams.
Yeah, he's number 10.
But playing under Mark Jackson, he didn't get a lot of productivity in those years, even though Mark Jackson started the whole thing up. Taught those guys how to play defense. But Draymond getting proper credit for his championship contributions, it would give him all that he needs. Not saying that he's the problem here. I'm just saying it gives him assurance that he gets extra credit for being an important piece on the championship team.
Like I said, I don't think that it's crazy. I just don't know that it is going to change it much. I really because just as I give, when I give Steph this credit, right, for being the man on 3 different championship teams, right,
and the team that lost in the finals,
right, I got to give Rick Barry the same credit for the 1 championship he won,
sure,
and the 2 finals that he made that they didn't win either.
Okay.
So now, it is that amount that Curry got over really going to be enough to account for the fact that Rick Barry still made more All-Star teams. He was still on more All-NBA first teams. He was still on more all NBA second teams. He won a finals MVP. Curry did not. He won the rookie of the year. Curry did not. So,
and I mean, again, that's the case right there. This could be just me and you. I don't think rookie of the year matters.
It matters.
Mike Miller won rookie of the year.
Any accolade that you attain with a team matters. Now,
so
that's why the point value is lower, though.
Versus a championship team. This is what I'm saying.
It's very low, though. It's very low.
So then it shouldn't be a factor with Curry.
Well, I mean, every point matters.
I think championships should be weighted much more heavily than everything else, and particularly starters for championships, particularly all-stars for championships. So when you got someone who's an all-star on a championship team, their name should be asterisk, underline, golden letters. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think that would.
Okay, so we agree. We don't really have to argue about it.
We agree. I just don't think it'll change.
You ain't gonna change it because I'm right and that's hard for you.
No.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's part of the reason I love you, man. It's okay. It's part of what makes you unique and special.
No, you sound like my father when my mother would tell him something. He would ask my mother for something that he thought she was supposed to say yes to or acquiesce to, and she would be like, "No, I'm not doing that." He go, "Oh, no problem. No problem. No problem. No problem."
I think that's what we are. I think we just became your parents.
No problem. No problem.
I do think I would say I would like the FPVR more if starters and stars on championship teams receive more credit than they currently do.
No.
I think the way it is right now, everybody on a championship team for the championship itself is receiving too similar of a credit, and it shouldn't even be close. In fact, I'm willing to bet, according to did you give Elgin Baylor credit for his championship?
I did.
That is a lot. That is honestly.
That was something that his case is like really an aberration. There really isn't a lot of people out there in that situation
because of the fact that he wasn't a starter on that team.
No. What I'm saying, you're saying that if there was more points given, but like here's the thing, his gap,
actually playing in the championship, yes, more points for that.
His gap over Shaq is fairly large in the point value, so it would even if I took his ring away. Like, because he has his points.
Let's say it doesn't change their places. Would it be more accurate though?
Say it again.
Would it be more accurate?
What be more accurate?
If Shaq got more credit for being a dominant force on a championship team than Elgin Baylor got for retiring in the championship season, would that be more accurate?
So say for instance, if Shaq got 5 additional points on top of the rings, right? I think because you get 10.
No, but hold on, because he gets the points for being a starter, and he gets the extra 3 for the PER, and then he gets the points for actually being in the championship game.
Well, how is he not? I think that's double dipping there because
why not double dip on a guy who was a championship starter or all-star? What's wrong with double dipping on that? That's what I'm not understanding.
Even almost.
I don't understand what's wrong with giving Magic, Kobe, and Shaq extra credit for being all stars and superstars on championship teams.
If you gave, you're talking about that's like 8 points.
Let's say it is 8 points.
And so it's
let's say it's 10.
So that would be 24 additional points.
Okay.
So that would not catch him with Elgin Baylor, even if I took away.
Okay, so how much is that? And you took away Elgin's?
If I took away Elgin's 3 points for the ring, yes, it would still not.
No, how much would it be? What were the numbers?
Elgin Baylor would go down to a 270.7, and Shaq would go to a 260.5.
Oh, hold on. Now that we have the actual numbers, we're starting to get to within a margin of error, though.
No, we're not. How?
Yes,
because you just gonna keep on making up metrics. How about if the man got 10 extra points for going to the bathroom on Wednesday?
Because here's the thing. Because I think the most important things to a franchise are the names that were in lights when they won a ring, and then beyond that, when they had playoff success, and then beyond that, people who had individual accolades.
I contend that is already accounted for.
Not enough. Is it numbers?
I think it is already accounted for because here's the thing. This is why we're looking at your statistics. This is why we're looking at your points. This is why we're looking at your rebounds, your assists. This is why we're looking at that. This is why we're looking at your all-star appearances, right? This is why we're looking at if you made an all NBA first team, all being NBA second team. That right there is telling me who you were on this team. It's telling me that, and you already got that. You want to give them something else all entirely, which is now going over and above. And the thing of it is you are underselling how good Elgin Baylor was.
No.
And here's the thing: it would be different.
It's not a player rating; it's about value.
No, exactly. But here's my thing: you cannot. This is the formula takes into consideration individual statistics, individual awards, team awards, and tenure. All four of those things. You're wanting to weight one more than the other. And that's not what the formula does. That's not what the formula does.
Am I willing to weight championships more than other team achievements? Yes. Yes, of course I am. You're right.
And you could make the argument that already is. You can make the argument that is already in place because of the amount of points that are given for postseason participation.
That's for those. No, that's one is one and the other is the other.
No, I disagree. I disagree. And I don't think that there are any. I think there are definitely some points of contention here, but I don't think that there are any gross missteps in the placement of the players.
Well, my point is I don't think you lose anything from giving championship players, particularly and when I say PER, I think the top 2, top 3 system is a little oversimplified. I would actually go through history and decide on actual relative numbers that would give more points to. So for instance, like, an insane PER is like 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a really good PER is 20. And then you start to come down to good player below 20, right? These are like guys who are good, but they're replaceable generally. But if that guy is doing that on a championship team, you account for those guys whose PERs could be higher, but they're sacrificing. You know what I'm saying? Like that brings those things into it because there's a lot of that going on championship teams. In fact, most veteran players will tell you the number one thing in winning a championship is being able to do enough, but allow the other guy to do his thing. And that sometimes means you're not always getting off. You're not averaging 25. Now you're averaging 18, but you're doing it because that's what's going to get you to win. And so this would compensate for that and also account for those specialists, your clutch shot hitters like Robert Ory and stuff like that, your defensive specialists like Dennis Rodman, your rebounding specialists. They would get more credit for doing that and winning everything because that's the whole point, is to win everything.
It is the whole point. But like I said, I contend that what you are looking for is already included without this individualization or the specification on these specific roles. I think this is actually already being taken care of. It doesn't, you contend that it's not because you think that Shaq should be above Elgin Baylor.
No, it's not that Shaq should be above Elgin Baylor. It's that according to what you told me and the gap that was there before, and even based on our rough early numbers, the result that was there after.
Right.
Like Shaq only being 10 points away from Elgin Baylor, that even according to what it was before makes more sense. Now I still think that when you get into real specifics, we have hypothetical numbers we're throwing around, but when you get into real specifics, I don't think there's a negative to giving people extra credit for being extremely heavy contributors to a championship, secondary contributors to a championship, and tertiary contributors to a championship.
And here's what I say. I think that it would only accentuate what's already there.
That's fine. But see, that's not about whether or not it makes it more accurate. Because according to what you're saying, we would have to go through every case and be like, which time does it move this up and down? And my thing is, if it makes it more accurate, I'm willing to go case by case and see if anybody switches places and if they should and if they should not. But according to the discussion we've had so far, I think it makes it more accurate.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I think it just makes it more of the same. But I think it makes it more of the same. 1989 says who has the highest FPVR. So if you're talking about the highest FPVR on a specific team and not the highest FPVR overall.
Overall, it would have to be. What's the highest?
The highest, well, because like I'd have to add up a couple of different guys, but Mike has the highest FPVR for one specific team. Michael's FPVR is ridiculous, 430.9.
What's Kobe's?
Kobe's is really high. It's right there. Kobe's is 400.8.
Yeah,
it's really it's super high. Hakeem's is 306.4. Actually, Mel Daniels is number one for the Pacers at 169.1. Reggie Miller's number two. Chris Paul is number one for the Clippers, 130.6. Like I said, Kobe's number one. Marc Gasol is number one for the Grizzlies, 104. Dwayne Wade is number one for the Heat at 241, which definitely makes sense. Kareem is number one for the Bucks, 207.6. Dr. J is number one for the Nets, 164.7. I did include ABA if it was the same franchise. If it's not, if it was a different franchise, I didn't include it. But if the franchise like just migrated over,
it's the Nets. It's because it's a franchise thing.
Yes. Kevin Garnett is number one for the Timberwolves at 205.1. Anthony Davis is already number one for New Orleans because the way they split it was everything with the New Orleans Hornets went with the Pelicans. And so that New Orleans Hornets history is so short.
Yeah.
What Davis has already done is already puts him at number one. Ewing is number one for the Knicks. Gary Payton is number one for the Sonics Thunder, but Westbrook is right on him. Orlando Magic is Dwight Howard. The 76ers is actually Dolph Shays is number one. Dr. J is number two. They got the same amount of rings, and Dolph Shays played a lot longer, and the rebounds are higher. The scoring is comparable. And he is not the highest. Now, this has nothing to do with rating. So I rated the players based off of their best season, and watching whatever clips they had available of them, looking at their statistics, and just doing the best I could do to try to transform their game to today's game for 2K purposes. Steve Nash is number one for the Suns. Clyde Drexler is number one for the Blazers. Oscar Robertson is number one for the Sacramento Kings, which is the Cincinnati Royals. Of course, Tim Duncan. Oh, Tim Duncan's actually has a higher FPVR than Kobe. He's at 405.7 for the Spurs, and he's number one. And Vince Carter is number one for the Raptors. And Karl Malone is number one for the Jazz. And Wes Unseld, Nips Elvin Hayes is number one for Washington Wizards and Bullets. So like I said, I think the right person is at the top for all of the teams. So,
Well, my final verdict is I think if championships had more weight and specificity, I would like it. But as it is right now, I think the championships are lumped in a little bit, and they're riding the crutches of what it takes to get to a championship. But I think that extra step of actually winning the championship is what franchises. Those are the banners you hang up.
Mm-hmm.
They're held in special regard, and I think the system should reflect that more accurately.
I can dig what you're saying. Like I said, I think what our disagreement is, I think that that's already in there.
Our disagreement is
we would have to. The only way to actually
I'm right.
The only way to actually prove that is to go through some of these cases and to apply what you're saying to see if it changes the result.
Yeah,
that's the only way to prove it. So outside of that, but it's my freaking formula, so I'm not gonna change it.
I know that's where we at. Hey, the people saw. Y'all heard what I'm saying. And when y'all get them rosters and y'all not happy with it,
no, they gonna be happy. They
you
gonna
know how,
they
you know
be
how
happy.
to fix it.
I told some dude, I told
Championships.
some dude that was talking about going back and forth with me about Iverson's rating. I said, look, man, it's free. It's free. I said, and if you get it and you don't like Iverson's rating, you can change the heck out of it. You
Right.
can make it a 99 if you want. But it's free. So it's all good. I ain't worry about it.
No, but that's my final verdict.
Yes.
Overall, it's not a terrible idea. It's an interesting concept. Change
And
that
this
one
is
thing.
probably the single longest segment that we've ever had.
This is how, you know, y'all know how it is, man. This is what we do. If normally what would have happened was we would have went off the air and had this conversation, but now y'all get to be a part of it. I hope y'all enjoy it.
This is 1989's doing.
This is an entirely separate episode now. We did 3 shows this week.
Right. It's about that because we are going up on 4 hours right now. Whoa. Close. So
yo, thank you for everybody riding with us this long. Most of y'all still here. That's much appreciated.
Even Azar left. And he the reason the show even got here.
Cutting up.
Yeah. So all right, guys. I appreciate everybody staying and watching throughout this entire time. As usual, God bless and peace.
See y'all 9 o'clock Eastern next week.